Hey yo, what's going on everybody? It's Tylarious, aka Ty Killington. Yeah, man. Alright, in this video, I'm going to be going over the differences with the new graphics modes in GTA 5 Online, the expanded, enhanced, new, next edition, whatever you guys want to call it. But there are three different graphics modes in the game now. You've got Fidelity, Performance, and Performance RT. I'm going to talk about each one of those and what they do and which graphics mode I recommend that you guys use. Now listen, at the end of the day, this is totally your personal preference, okay? So please play around with them and see which ones you like the best. But I want to be doing my best to show you examples and help you understand what each one does and what it can do for you and how you can enjoy the next edition, the next gen GTA 5 Online with your PS5 or your Xbox Series X, okay? So first of all, let's start talking about what these new performance and graphics modes are, all right? So Fidelity mode is tuned for the highest visual quality and targets 30 FPS. So what that means is it's going to give you the best resolution, but the frames per second are going to be very poor. I'd recommend just not even fooling with this, okay? The next one is going to be performance mode, and that's tuned for the most responsive gameplay and targets 60 FPS. In this mode, the PS5 and Xbox Series X support an upscaled 4K resolution, while the Xbox Series S supports a resolution of 1080p. And then finally, you have the Performance RT mode, which is basically a hybrid of the Fidelity and the Performance, which targets not only 4K but also 60 FPS, and it introduces ray tracing. That's what the RT mode stands for, right? However, ray tracing is an extremely taxing feature on a unit's hardware, whether it's your console or your GPU for a PC. All right. However, Rockstar has done a fantastic job of integrating ray tracing into a console and still being able to achieve 60 FPS or close to it. But there is a caveat, and I'm going to explain this to you. And this is the best way. Ray tracing really just mimics the realism of light, reflections, and shadows. As you see here, I'm going back and forth between Performance and Performance RT mainly, and I'm showing you my character's shadow and the Mark II shadow. Alright? So what Rockstar has done, they have basically, with the Performance and Performance RT, with the ray tracing, they focus the ray tracing on up-close objects. As you see here, the Performance RT mode gives you a sharper image of my shadow and the Mark II shadow. However, that will sacrifice frames per second because it is more taxing, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. Now, with the Fidelity mode, you're going to get actually a sharper looking shadow. However, the image of the screen is much more choppy. So honestly, guys, don't even worry about Fidelity mode. It's just not worth it. As you see here, we go back to Performance mode. You can see the shadow of my leg. It's still visible. You can still see and make out to what it looks like an actual person, what the object is, but it's just more blurred. It's just more kind of just meshed in. And you go to Performance RT mode, and it's absolutely much sharper. But again, because it's more taxing on the hardware, it's going to limit the frames per second when you get with a lot of explosions. And when you get into the actual world of GTA, you'll see the difference with that. All right, we're bouncing back and forth. That's the Fidelity mode. Back to Performance RT. You see the Fidelity mode will give you a sharper, shadow effect. But again, when you move and pan your camera around, it's very choppy. So please, just stay away from Fidelity. It's just not worth it. You know, if we're going to the next gen, let's enjoy the 60 FPS. As you see right here, the image is extremely choppy, going back and forth. You can see the number, the 1 and the 7. It just gets chopped up real bad. It's just not worth it. And you switch back over to Performance RT or Performance mode, which I'm going to switch to Performance mode. The shadow gets a little bit more, obscure, but look how just smooth and butter that is. Now, when you switch to Performance RT, it's very difficult to tell by watching a video, but when you're in the game, you can tell. It's still very smooth, but it does kind of drop the frames down just a little bit. Up close, it's very hard to tell, though. It really is. It's almost indistinguishable. But when you get out into the actual world of GTA, you'll notice and see what I'm talking about. So I honestly think that it's going to be down between the preference of Performance and Performance RT. And again, Performance will deliver great resolution, 4K, and it will deliver the most smooth and butter-like frames per second, being able to maintain and reach that 60 FPS much more often. Now, again, what Rockstar has done with the ray tracing is when you're kind of like in a standalone, not too hectic and crazy environment, and you're right there up close, it looks very, very good. And it would make you want to just always play on Performance RT. But which I'm about to show you here in just a moment, you'll see when you get into the actual world of GTA Online with everything moving around, you start to see where the ray tracing gets taxed. For example, let's check this out. I'm just on the corner of the street right here. Look at the shadows from the light pole and the trees and the people walking. I'm on performance mode. I'm going to switch to performance RT, and look, the shadows go away. The character shadows disappear, are very, they're kind of like drawn down a little bit, and then the trees and the traffic light posts go away. When I switch back to performance mode, they come back, so it looks way better with the performance mode, and I still have that smooth butter 60 FPS. Switching back to performance RT, and you see the shadows kind of get dropped down a little bit. So that's kind of the sacrifice. If it's like a still not a lot going on, right up close, the performance RT would be better than the performance. But when you get into the actual world of the game, that's where you start to see the hardware gets taxed a little bit. Go back to regular performance mode, you still keep that butter smooth 60 FPS, and the shadows look much more realistic. Now, I did my best to test the reflections, and everywhere I went, maybe nighttime would be a bit better to tell, but everywhere I went around the game, the shadowing or the reflections looked pretty good on all the modes. Especially between the performance and the performance RT. Again, I'll have to do some more testing with this with the reflections, but I think that, Rockstar had to make some sacrifices somewhere to get this going because, again, ray tracing is extremely taxing on the hardware, and it's really designed to be a feature for high-performing, PC rigs. Another telltale sign of how it kind of taxes the hardware, look at the street right above my character's head where the buildings are. I'm going to switch. This is on Performance RT, and the shadows kind of went away from the buildings. You can only see 1, 2, 3 shadows right there, all right, from those buildings. They're kind of hard to see. I'm going to switch back to Performance mode, and then you can literally see the shadows repopulate. So again, that's kind of where you have your give and your take, your paper, rock, scissors balance type kind of feature with these two gaming modes. We'll go back to Performance RT, and you can literally see the shadows blur out and kind of disappear a little bit. Again, because the hardware of the Next Gen Consoles is having to, take into consideration everything that you're seeing and all the mechanics of the game. We go back to Performance mode, and you can see them repopulate. Again, this is completely up to you. This is your own personal preference. I will be using performance mode. I think that that's the best all around. It gives me the smoky, silky, smooth, buttery, just graphics. I still get great resolution, and it just looks good all the way around. Now, if I want to take like some up-close photo shots maybe or something like that, I might switch over to Performance RT. You might like that better. They're very, very similar, but I wanted to kind of display the differences that I saw. So I hope this helped out. If you guys got any questions at all, leave them in the comments down below. Thank you so much, and let me know what graphics mode are you guys going to be using with your Next Gen consoles, all right? Make sure you are subscribed to the channel for the Ills or Reels content in the game. Smash that like button. See you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out. Yeah.